This is Nan McKay. This interview is part of our Pivot and Soar series. We're interviewing trailblazers who have pivoted away from their former career to another venture by creating a business. Our guest today is Case Lane. Case is the ultimate in lifestyle entrepreneurship, but her journey along the way is fascinating. Case, you've done several pivots from government official to corporate entrepreneurship. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. This is, sometimes when you pick your first career, that's not where you want to stay. So I started out in the Foreign Service, in the Canadian Foreign Service, and I was talking to business people all the time. And I thought I'm really interested in business. And I decided to get an MBA. I went to corporate America and I ended up talking to lawyers all the time. And so I ended up going back to school to get my law degree. And while I was there, I started self-publishing fiction novels. And that led me into the world of online business, which I think is the most exciting career option and world of economic growth that's going on right now for individuals. And once I started learning all of the terminology and the technology and the things that were involved, I decided I would focus full time on online business because of just the great flexibility that it gives you as you're doing the work that you really enjoy.
And would you say that's the primary reason that you switched from over here, the government official, then on to a regular corporate career, and then over here to online business? In each case, was the primary reason that you wanted that freedom?
Well, I think what I was really looking for is a challenge. When you start out, you don't know anything. You start with maybe at a company or an organization, and you're working your way up and you're learning. And if you're like me, you love to learn, you love to take in knowledge, you talk to people, you gather, you sort of put together. And I think also, if you know corporate life, not every corporation, but a lot of them, you get into a position where you're good at that job and that's where they want you to stay. And if you're the kind of person who likes to keep evolving and developing and growing and learning, it becomes a struggle to actually try and do the work that would be challenging to you when you're in a position where, well, your job is your job and that's all they want from you is for you to do your job. So I found that for me to get more and more experience, to be able to do other things, to really use my skills, my education, I had to keep moving. If you could look around, and some people work for great companies and you can let them know you want better opportunities and so on, and they'll find them for you. But I wasn't in that position, so I had to keep moving myself and giving myself newer challenges. And that's how I like to do things. I like to be challenged, and I like to be really going all the time towards the work that is what I really want to be doing.
Well, I think the number one reason why people are afraid to pivot to entrepreneurship is probably financial.
Mm-hmm.
How are you able to make that financial transition to entrepreneurship?
Yeah, you have to definitely consider that. Now, there's different ways to approach it. Some people just want to quit their job and do something else. And so they're just willing to work 24/7 to make their new business venture work out for them. And so that's all they're going to do. And they're going to just take their expenses down as far as they possibly can and focus all the time on the business and getting it to work. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, of course, is just to save and have the money available. And I'm a little leery of giving yourself a fixed time frame, because the thing about online business is you don't know when you're going to break through. You could have an idea that you're pushing for 2, 3, 4 years, trying to get people to listen to you, trying different things, advertising, all of that, and then suddenly you go viral the next day and everything changes. So I don't want to put a timeline on it. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, you don't know, but you have to have some way of paying your bills. So if you do have a set of savings, you can do it that way. And then, of course, there is simply to keep working and to work evenings and weekends on building your business until it is able to pay your bills and beyond.
Yeah, I think some people think that you can set your own hours and you'll work less, but not necessarily with entrepreneurship.
Not in the beginning, for sure. I mean, unless you've got some $1 million idea that everybody catches on to immediately. But I think the thing to think about is when you're doing online business, perseverance is the name of the game. A lot of the people who are very successful tried multiple different things, and they kept trying and kept trying. All you have to do is stick with it. Don't give up. Keep doing these different things, it could be the same thing different ways, because you don't know what it is. You don't know if it is your message. You could have a great product, but the message is not resonating. Or maybe your message is okay, but your distribution is really weak, so you're not getting to the big potential customer base that you could have. You're just not sure. And so if you stop, that's the end of it. You'll never know. But if you keep going, if you try different things, if you keep approaching it, you keep reaching out to people, that's what's going to grow your business. And if it's a good idea, you'll see, because you'll start to get the first group of people saying, oh, I like that. That's interesting. They ask you questions. They'll come back for more. They'll buy your product. And then you can grow and build from there. But you have to be prepared from the beginning to persevere. And so when it comes to, back to the finances, you don't want to be in a situation where you're forced to go back to work. And now that happens to a lot of people, and they do it. And so, they can keep the lights on while they still keep working on the business. So let's say you quit your job, you're working on the business, it's not working out, you have to go back to work. Now you're going to be doing it evenings and weekends. So you might end up doing a combination of different things to make it happen.
Case, what advice would you have for someone thinking of quitting their job and starting a business?
Well, I would definitely say, if you are that person who is always thinking of business ideas, you've wanted to be an entrepreneur, you have a good idea in your head, you think that there's an opportunity there, then definitely go for it. So that's that. But like we were just talking about with the making sure you can pay your bills and keep the lights on while you're doing it, make sure you're set up to do it. Now, again, if you're going to just work on your business all the time and not actually worry about, the money, in the sense that you're just not going to make that the priority, you're just going to work on the business all the time to make sure it becomes, what you want it to be, then that's another way of doing it as well. But you could think about, when you're going to think about quitting your job, if it's really something you're thinking about, if it's really something you're interested in, that's what you want to be doing, then I say absolutely go ahead and do it.
Well, did you know what business you wanted to do right away?
No, not at all. I started out on a different path. I started out writing. And I started out self-publishing. And it wasn't even until I got into self-publishing that I started to learn about all of the online business options. I really didn't know that world at all. I didn't know what a lead magnet was, or a reader magnet, or a landing page, or some of these other terms that have become so popular in the online business space. I knew what a website was, but I certainly didn't know how to build my own. And I didn't know, I got lots of emails from people, but I didn't know there was a whole email management system behind it. So as I started to learn these things, other people started to ask me what I was doing and how I was doing it. And I realized there's a huge gap in information. We tend to think nowadays, because we have Google, we think that, oh, well, all the information's out there, which is sort of true. It's out there, but it's not organized in the best way for the people who are looking for it. And I found the biggest question people had is, how do I get started? They would say, oh, I see people making money online. I see what you're doing. I see all these things happening. I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what all the options are. That's where I started. I had no idea what all these things were, and all these different, opportunities that existed. And that's where a lot of people are as well. And so when I started, no, I had no idea. And now I've learned a great deal over the years in building my own business.
What were some of the very first steps that you took to create your new business? Was it learning all these new programs, or what'd you do?
Yeah, it sort of happened indirectly. So I'm very academically oriented. I've got 5 post-secondary degrees. I love knowledge. So I started looking at online courses. I thought, okay, the best way to learn this is going to be to take a course. And I took a course that happened to be like a more DIY focused approach to ebook self-publishing. And it's one of those things where I didn't know anything. So I just assumed that's how people were doing it. And I've subsequently taken other courses which are more outsourcing approached. And I think that if I had done the outsourcing approach first, I obviously would not have learned nearly as much as just happened to take the DIY course first, because that's the first one I saw. And that course included in it, so it was for self-published authors, and it included how to set up your website, how to set up a landing page, how to do a lead magnet. And that's what I started to learn. And then what tends to happen when you sign up for an email list and the person you're signed up with starts to do joint promotions with other people, then you learn about this thing and that thing and online courses and all of that. It snowballs from there. And that's what continued to happen. And then after about a year, I decided, I really should be talking to other people. Entrepreneurship could be a very lonely road. And I was by myself, me and my laptop, trying to figure everything out. And I thought I should go to conferences so I can meet people and talk to them, find out what they're doing, learn from them. And that's exactly what I started to do. So about little less than a year into it, I started looking for conferences that I could attend and learn more. And that ended up being a great experience as well.
Well, how did you find your first customer?
Basically, that starts with word of mouth, and that happens with a lot of other people as well. It was telling people when you've had a career and you've done different things and people are asking you what you're doing now, that's when you have that opportunity, that opening to say, well, this is what I'm doing. Do you know anyone who'd be interested? And one of the things I know it's really difficult for people, especially if you have had a professional career, you're an educated person, and everybody knows you as that one thing, and now you're doing something different. And it's really hard to say to people, well, is anybody interested in what I'm doing? So what you want to do, and I've learned this over the years, and I've developed this for myself because I just found this information wasn't available. You need kind of a roundabout way to approach the people in your life today to get them to where you are now. So the roundabout way is to ask people indirectly to say, do you think anyone you know would be interested in this? Or, if it's people that you're close to, you might be able to make a direct reference. Like you could say, I remember when you belonged to such and such a group. That's similar to what I'm doing now. Do you still have a connection over there? Or do you remember so-and-so who lived down the street? Do you think that they're still doing this thing? And do you have could you give me their email address? And then you just have to keep asking people. And I know it's difficult, but this is the key with business. Business is making a product and selling a product. You've got to do the selling part. I did not know this in the beginning. I mean, I knew generalities about it, but I didn't know what it would take for me to be that person who's promoting the business. And so basically what it came down to was wanting to actually find out how I could talk to people about the business without feeling like I'm a salesperson and I'm bothering people and all those other things, all those kinds of doubts that start to hit you. So that's why I go with this roundabout approach, because at the end of the day, you have a product that you believe in. It's a solution for people. You're delivering value. So the key is, you've got to remember that at all times. And then you're looking for the people who also want that product. So you're not being mean and intrusive and sleazy and all that kind of stuff. If you say to somebody, I have something you want, and now let's make that trade. So you just have to remember to think of it that way, that you have value to offer and you can actually approach people with that value to let them know that you've got it and you're distributing it.
Well, how did you actually make your first dollar? Because you talked about financial, but how'd you make the money?
Yeah, well, for me, it started with writing. So when you're writing, you're selling a book, and that's how it could actually, let's say, I was just talking about the friends and family approach to publicity and marketing and so on, but it actually does not have to be that. You could be all alone, you don't have any friends, you don't know anybody. So now you're going to market your book directly yourself. And that's going to be through Amazon and Smashwords and Draft to Digital and these other platforms. They're all free to use. And you can create a book You can, depending on your artistic talent, you could do your own book cover, or you could outsource it or something like that. But you could, it's inexpensive to actually create the book. You could do your own formatting, and you can put it up on these platforms like Amazon and all the other ebook platforms, and you can just start selling that book and you get paid. And the more work you want to put into your own promotion and marketing and selling, that's going to be the trade-off. And when you're out there with your message and your book and you're going to groups and speaking to people, you just build and grow your audience that way. So then it could lead to other things. For example, on your website, you could put advertising on your website. So you could be an author with a website around a particular theme, and it's also free to set up an account with Google AdSense, and Google can run ads to your website and you're collecting that way. You can sell your book directly on your website. You can start to sell other products. You can offer courses. You can offer coaching. So depending on how you're starting out, the most common ways to start earning money online is to have some kind of digital-based information product. Doesn't cost you anything to distribute it. You just need a platform for where people can buy it from you, or to sell or to make your platform available for advertising, and to let advertisers use your platform. So you drive the audience. It's just like broadcast television. You drive the audience, and then people are able to, the more eyeballs for TV, then the more you could charge advertisers. Well, this is what happens when you have a popular website. Could just start out with a blog, but if you're driving that audience, advertisers are on your website and they're paying you to get their ads in front of an audience. So that's how you can start in the beginning, pretty much almost for free.
Well, when things started to grow, and I know that they did, because you have like 9 cylinders that you're working in, or 9 businesses, how'd you deal with the admin duties?
Yeah, that's a tough one. One of the, for entrepreneurs, we like to do everything ourselves. Well, or we start out doing everything ourselves, and then it becomes really difficult to start handing things off because you're worried, well, these strangers don't know my work as well as I do. They don't care about it as well as I do. So like almost everything, it's really hard to find good people. So you just have to start somewhere. You start outsourcing. I use a site called Fiverr to outsource. You could also try Upwork. You could try others. You can go with virtual assistants. And if you do everything on a short-term project basis in the beginning, so you don't go with some long-term contract with somebody you've never talked to before. Do it all on a short-term basis, see how it works out, and then continue to grow from there. So if you have a really good person, you say, wow, I'd like to bring you on at a monthly rate or something like that, and just go from there. And the other thing is to use the technology. There's a lot of really great technology. There are operations systems-based technologies where you can keep everything really well organized, and that allows you then to be able to have some flexibility. This is the absolute dream of what you want, is you want things to work on autopilot. You want your business to just be working in the background for you. Everything is set up, everything is automated. It takes time to set that all up in the beginning, but that's where you want to be, so that then you can just do what you want to do and everything is working the way that you want it to work.
So what or who were some of your top resources, like maybe books or coaches or podcasts, that just helped you along the way?
Yes, I mentioned I've learned, I started with online courses, and I started with the self-publishing type of online courses. So I did Nick Stevenson's course, Your First 10,000 Readers, and Chandler Bolt's self-publishing school. And I've learned a lot through the Russell Brunson's process with ClickFunnels. And so I really like courses. I read a lot. I have a long list of books, book suggestions on my website where you can see, all the different books that I feel that there's so many. It depends on what you want to do. If it's personal development, if it's marketing, if it's just business in general, there are a lot of different books that you look at. And so I tend to be a big reader, so I look at that. And there are some podcasts that I really enjoy too. There are those that have what I call a lot of teaching in them. So podcasts that focus on like Social Media Examiner, they have a good one where there's a lot of teaching type podcasts where you end up taking notes and giving you really good ideas. So I use that a lot to help me just to stay up to date on everything that's going on. As I mentioned, I go to conferences, so you find out the latest things that are going on, but that's that's once a year. And you really want to stay on top of, especially in online business, you want to stay on top of all the different developments, all the different possibilities, because there is so much and it's changing so quickly.
Well, we know you not only like to read books, you like to write books. You have written like what, 19 books?
Yeah, fiction and nonfiction. Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. Yeah, I do love to write. And that's part of, as I mentioned, I started out writing. That's exactly what I wanted to do. And that it's interesting because I think you have to learn the other side. As I mentioned, you have to learn the marketing and the promotion and all of that. And that can then lead you down this road of all the other pieces of online business. But I probably, if I could have just stayed in, writing all day long, I probably would have just kept writing different books. But I ended up having to learn all the rest of it to actually be able to support the writing. So that was the process.
Tell us about one of your surprises along the way.
Yeah, I think one of the things is to really recognize and try and understand what people are doing online. You will see all of the rah-rah stories, the sort of exciting, driving the Lamborghini and lying by a pool stories and all that kind of stuff. And then you get into the details. And with some of the entrepreneurs who've really told their story about how things work and what they did and how long it took them, or they've written their books about it. And you really get to understand, okay, this is a much different process, especially if you're coming out of corporate or you're coming out of some professional career where, the company had or the organization's got their systems and their processes and all these things set up. And now you're approaching online business, and there's no setup that's all ready for you to just take it and apply it. You've got to learn it along the way. And as I mentioned, you don't know how long it's going to take. You don't know what's going to resonate with your dream customers. You don't know which thing that you do is the one that makes all the difference. So it's a much different approach to getting up and being, successful compared to going to college and getting a corporate job and climbing the ladder. And that's something you really have to understand as you go into this.
So thinking back, what would you have done differently?
Yeah, I think one of the things would have been to just try and get the big picture earlier. So that's what I do for people today, is to yes, I prepare aspiring entrepreneurs to understand what this landscape of online business looks like. Because what tends to happen is you see that first webinar where it sounds like a great idea, and you sign up and you get into whatever the thing is, online courses. And then you see the next webinar and it's affiliate marketing. So you sign up for that. And then the next one is podcasting. So you sign up for that. And you haven't taken any time to take a look at your real interests and your skills and your passions and what you really want to do, and figure out from where you want to be which one of the online platforms works best for you. And so that's what I tell people: take that step back. It might take you a day, it might take you 6 months. Take a look and understand what the possibilities are. Match that to your skills, your interests, what you like doing, and then start getting into the specifics of what that thing is that you really want to do.
Can you share with us maybe your 3 most important lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, so that would be one, is to just keep an eye on the broader landscape. Now, some people I know exactly what they want to do. So if you already know you want to do a podcast or write a blog or something like that, you're fine. But if you haven't decided, if all you know is you want to do something online and you haven't figured out what it is, and you're not sure, how you can get into it, then take the time in the beginning to see the whole landscape. And if you're a professional and you're worried about how much time it's going to take you to start a business, something like that, spend the 15 minutes a day doing the research on each of the different online business areas, and then maybe a half hour or a little more as you start to pick the one that you want. Just start there. Just start with 15 minutes a day of research and build from there. And then the other thing you want to do is to really know who your dream customer is. Because there is, as I mentioned, this tendency to see something and then say, okay, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and keep switching off back and forth. But if you know who your dream customer is, so you've identified the opportunity, you know what value you want to deliver, and you've figured out your dream customer, and not just the basic demographics, but who are they really? What did they like? What did they not like? Where do they vacation? What's the work like? You know, all these different things. That's what you want to understand. You really want to know your dream customer, because then that helps you stay on message. It helps you set your priorities. It helps you figure out who you want to be talking to. So you don't leave it open at all. Figure out exactly who that person is, and then that's the market you go after. And don't worry about, you might have friends and family say, well, why don't you do something for this or something for that? But no, you stick with who you want to stick with as your dream customer. And then as you're going along, you're building your business. This is very difficult for entrepreneurs getting started. Try and stay organized. So this is a tough one, but just the simplest things. Maybe just creating the right kind of folders, so you don't lose things and so on. Because the more you start to grow, the more you get into complicated different things. You might start out with one landing page and one free guide that you're giving away, and start growing that into all sorts of things like books and courses and podcasts and all of that. So you really want to stay tightly organized, keep your operations in order in a system that works for you, but where you can really get to things, so you're not spending that extra time just trying to figure out, where stuff is. You really want to make sure also that you're organized so that you can hand the work off to somebody. So if you set everything up in an organized way from the beginning, or at least sort of go in at some point and do that, then when you're ready to start outsourcing or hiring a virtual assistant or hiring even somebody to work with you directly, you actually have your operations set up, and that person can then just come in and take that work off of your plate, which is what you want to get to eventually, where you're not doing everything yourself.
Well, I think you are absolutely amazing. You started out as a diplomat in the Foreign Service, and you were posted to, if I remember right, Colombia, Chile, the Philippines, and you have literally traveled all over the world, and many times by yourself, except that I know you have friends everywhere you go all over the world.
Yeah.
So is that what you like best about your new lifestyle, or is it something else?
No, that's definitely a big part of it. One of the challenges when you work in corporate or anywhere is taking time off. And maybe you'll get your 15 days if you take your 15 days, and then actually being able to use it and enjoy it and have the trip that you want to have. I do have friends all over the world. They live in countries that I wouldn't visit, normally, except for the fact that they're there. And so you want to be able to just go and enjoy yourself and not feel that you're constantly rushing back all the time, trying to cover for the office, right? So it was a big thing for me to be able to, when I started to realize what online business was all about, and how you're not only doing work you really want to do, but you're also doing it on your terms. That doesn't mean that you get to sort of put your feet up and nothing happens. You might end up working a lot more, but you control it, and you organize it closer to around the schedule of the things that the other things you want to do. And you don't end up in that situation that you have quite often in corporate life, where you're having to, give up your sister's getting married and you go just for the wedding on Saturday, and when you'd rather have gone for a week to help out and get things organized, or you have that vacation that you want to take, and you really love to explore a country for a month, and you can only go for a week, and things like that. Just those, or even just how you like to work. You have to be at the office at 9 a.m., but you're really a late night person. You do your best work at midnight. Being able to organize your life around the way that you really like to work, that is the best thing about it. And I think that's a surprise for people, is to realize you can do that. So many of us we grow up with the traditional path, as I call it, to go to college and get a good job, and then get save for retirement and retire, and that's the end of it. And so because we're in that instruction that we've been given a long time ago, we think that that's the only thing we can do, but that's what we see most people doing. But when you start to get into online business and you realize that there are all these people right now, there are thousands, there'll soon be tens of thousands, and then hundreds of thousands of people who are earning a living strictly online and living their life on their own terms. And when you start to realize that that's an option for you, yeah, that starts to look pretty good. Even if the work is going to take you months or years to get to the point where you could do that, when that's the outcome and you can then live your life like that for as long as you like, that's what, that it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it to put in the time up front.
Well, thank you so much. You've given us so many pearls of wisdom to think about and so many practical things that we should be able to use in our entrepreneur life. So thank you. And we just wish you a lot of success in all your ventures, even those 9 separate cylinders you've got.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being on today.